join as we go. You're all very welcome to the webinar today. My name is Emma Loughney. I'm the Communications Manager with the Fulbright Commission Ireland. I'd like to welcome our panelists and all of our participants too. Hopefully you can all hear me okay and see our screens. We're delighted so many people have registered today and are interested in scholarships for artists, writers, professionals and students. The Fulbright Awards are opportunities to go and study, research and or lecture in the US. We also provide opportunities for US citizens to come to Ireland and do the same. So we have a fantastic lineup of speakers for you today, all accomplished Fulbright alumni in the cultural and heritage sectors. We're going to hear from Helen O'Donoghue, who's Senior Curator and Head of Education and Learning at IMMA.
Hello.
Helen was a Fulbright Scholar to MoMA, New York. We have David Stone, who's a PhD candidate at the School of Archaeology in UCD.
Hi, hello.
And David was a Fulbright Creative Ireland Museum Fellow to the Smithsonian in Washington, DC.
Right.
Nell Regan is a writer and educator. She was a Fulbright Scholar to the University of California, Berkeley. And Dr. Orla Murphy is a lecturer in the School of English and Digital Arts and Humanities at UCC. And she was a Fulbright Tech Impact Scholar to Boston College.
Hi.
And we also have my colleague Paula Melvin, who's the Fulbright Awards Manager, on the call today. So all of these speakers have had diverse experiences on their Fulbright scholarships in the US, and they'll be sharing invaluable insights and tips with us. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions after the panelists speak. Participants can type their questions in the chat box, and I will put them to the speakers towards the end of the session. Somebody just saying the volume is a bit low, so I'll come a bit closer and hopefully that'll be better, but you might be able to turn up your device as well, okay? This session is being recorded, so for anyone who needs to dip out, don't worry, we can send the link out, okay? In terms of the questions, if you have specific questions about application dates and eligibility criteria, we encourage you to visit our website because all of that info is readily available in our FAQs, and we will have a webinar on the 17th of October, or sorry, 17th of September that will touch on that specifically and go through comprehensively. So there'll be a chance to ask questions at that session too, okay? But today is an opportunity to hear straight from alumni who have experienced these awards firsthand, get their personal insights. So bear that in mind with your questions, please. So while I'm not going to go through the Fulbright application process today, I will give you a very brief overview of Fulbright Award options available for artists, writers, arts professionals and students before handing you over to our speakers. So just by way of introduction, I'm hoping to show you a short video of one of our alumni artist, Alice Maher, just to give you a taster of what the Fulbright scholarships are all about. So bear with me for 2 seconds and hopefully I'll be able to share it with you now. It's coming now, hopefully.
Emma, do you want me to try it?
I think I have it here, Paul. Thanks very much. Hopefully be able to see this now.
I don't know if I would have ended up being an artist actually if I hadn't had that year in San Francisco. Like the word I would say is like a diving board for me to dive off of, you know, studentship and into actually being an artist. You know, to really to accept myself actually as an artist, because that's a hard thing to do actually, because there's a lot of social pressure and a lot of personal pressure from inside as well. It's a hard thing to say, isn't it, that yes, I am an artist. What do you do? I'm an artist. You know, like, it took me a long time to get to that position, but I think that the Fulbright scholarship, you know, put me in this on a kind of plane where I could see very clearly that yes, that is what I'm going to be.
Yeah, hopefully you could see that all right. Yeah, so I'll run through quickly these opportunities. with you. Share my screen again. Now, so just in terms of the opportunities, okay, the application timeline, very briefly, our awards will open on the 31st of August this year. Deadline will be 2nd of November. Then reviews take place November to December. Interviews will take place January to February, and offers will be made in March. So in terms of your planning, we advise you to review the information on our website from now. Choose an award, and I'll go through those award categories with you now. Find a course if you want to do a master's or a PhD, or plan your proposal if you want to go and do research or lecturing, and reach out to host institutions, okay? Research what it means to be a Fulbrighter, and you will hear from our Fulbrighters today. There's lots of videos on our website as well, which will give you insight into kind of the Fulbright ethos. And you can register your interest on our website now as well. So the award categories, we have 5 award categories, and you'll be choosing one of these if you're applying this year. There's the Student Awards to do postgraduate research or degree programs, the Scholar Awards to do academic or professional research or lecturing, the Irish Tech Impact Awards for academic professional research with an ICT with a tech focus, the FLTA Awards to teach Irish language and take courses, and the Schumann Awards, which are for Irish and EU citizens. Those last ones, the Schumann, are run by the Belgian Commission. But I'll be focusing on the these three categories today: Student Awards, Scholar Awards, and Tech Impact Awards, okay? So these 3 award types are open to all disciplines. So no matter what you're studying or what you're working in, what your profession is, these awards are open to you, okay? The Tech Impact, again, obviously has a tech focus in that you need to be applying technology to whatever discipline you're involved in. So these are open to all disciplines. There's also a number of sponsored awards available in these categories, okay? So there's a number of sponsored awards that are open to students and scholars, some student only, some scholar only. The all discipline awards, obviously people from all fields are applying to those, so they're highly, highly competitive. These ones, I suppose to bear in mind the sponsored awards, there is a certain fund set aside for each of these awards each year. So of course they're still competitive, there's still a very high standard, but there may be less people applying for each of these sponsored awards. So it's a good idea to check these out and see if they're relevant to what you want to do. The most appropriate ones for our audience today might be the Fulbright Creative Ireland Museum Fellowships, and they're for students, and the Scholar version would be the Fulbright Creative Ireland Professional Fellowships. So the Creative Ireland Museum Fellowships, they are specifically to one of 3 organisations: the Harry Ransom Centre, the Exploratorium, or the Smithsonian Institute. And David Stone, who will be speaking today, went to the Smithsonian on one of these. This is open to the student category only, so you need to be a graduate, usually with less than 5 years professional experience, but there are exceptions to that. And each of these 3 awards has specific eligibility criteria, so you need to just look at the flyers on our website. Then we've just recently announced, just this week, the Fulbright Creative Ireland Professional Fellowship, which is great. This is an open scholar award. You can choose to go to any institution in the US that you like, whether that's a college, a university, gallery, or museum. And this is open to the scholar category only. So these are for professionals with more than 7 years relevant experience in the creative, cultural, and heritage sectors, okay? So that's all that I wanted to run through today. And without further ado then, I will pass over to Helen O'Donoghue to share some of her experience.
Great. So thank you very much, Emma, and thanks to everybody at Fulbright. I'm going to first of all try and get my slides up. Oh, what have I done?
Don't worry.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, we can see it now, thanks.
And I want the slideshow. Okay, thank you very much. So as I said, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share this. I was thinking about sort of questions that I was asking myself before I embarked on this in 2017. I would want to say, first of all, that the Fulbright experience completely lived up to my expectations, and in fact, it far exceeded them. I had prior knowledge of the Fulbright program from two perspectives. One is that IMMA, where I work as engagement and learning programmer, we have hosted 2 USA Fulbrights in the museum. And I was also supported a young Irish postgraduate student when he was applying for his application to go to the States. I went to New York from mid-October 2019 to the end of February 2020, and I carried out my research at the Museum of Modern Art's MoMA archives and galleries, and I was hosted by the education department there. My research was triggered by a very ambitious program the museum has, which is been supported by government, and that is to develop a bespoke collections and learning centre on the grounds of the museum. And it is going to be focused on our archives, our collection, and our engagement and learning programme. When I was looking, first of all, at the scholarship awards in Fulbright, I had hoped that the Creative Ireland scholarships would work for me, but they were limited at that time to the named institutions that Emma just mentioned. So as MoMA was not on the list, I applied under what I felt was the most open category, as advised by Sonia in Fulbright, and she assisted me in identifying that. I then approached Wendy Woon, who's the head of education at MoMA, and discussed my research proposal with her, and she agreed to be the host institution, writing a letter of invitation for me. And I also identified the most relevant referees and sought and was given support from my own institution for the application. And then I entered the online process, which I think we'll probably talk a little bit about at the end because it's quite challenging. So once I heard that the peer-to-peer selection or the technical selection had approved my application, I then began to prepare for the interview process, as this was focused on making the case for selection as a Fulbrighter. I read about the senator's life and read about his philosophies of cultural exchange as a means to aid intercultural understanding and world peace. And I spoke with successful candidates from previous years and got their advice. And I also did a mock interview with a very critical friend. I found the interview process, while a critical and very thorough focus on why I wanted to represent Fulbright, to be very encouraging, most especially in how Dara welcomed me beforehand and spoke with me afterwards. So to sum up at this point, I feel that it's important to do your research before you begin the application process. Inform yourself by talking to as many former and current Fulbright scholars as possible. I found that advice that I received was invaluable, and everyone was very open and forthcoming about their experiences. This is the title of my research. When I arrived in MoMA in October 2019 to begin my period of research, the education team had been mining their archive for some 18 months to reflect on their first 80-year history and exploring how their legacy would inform their future programming. And I was curious as to what this work might reveal. Woon had commissioned an artist and postgraduate, Dr. Sarah Torres, to deeply excavate the papers in the archive of the period and to map out the key developments. Her work uncovered the role that MoMA had played in its earliest years and situated it as a key catalyst in the evolving ecology that was emerging in the USA, that was part of a broadening up of interdisciplinary thinking across the arts, education, psychology and philosophy, and had networks with innovative individuals and institutions. Torres' research enabled the education team there to situate their thinking, to revisit their core values and underpin their philosophical and pedagogical approach to their programming as part of the reimagining of MoMA's reopening in October 2019 after 2 years of closure. Being based in one of the busiest museums in the world, this period facilitated me to convene a number of conversations about the value of this work, to explore and learn about how the MoMA is currently archiving the past, activating the present, and consider how best to map out a strategy for programming and archiving into the future at my own institution, the Irish Museum of Modern Art. My research at the MoMA archive was focused on the Victor D'Amico papers. He was the first director of education at MoMA, and its wider influence that he and his contemporaries had on art education in the USA. What was of interest to my research was to see how D'Amico's legacy was being applied in current times and how the teams of educators and freelance artists and facilitators adapted his philosophy in their work in the People Studio. You see here on the slide on the right, The previous creativity lab is from the archives from the early 1960s. I spent time in the People's Studio where people were encouraged to be present, to interact and connect with one another, and to reflect on art and making of art and what this means in their lives. I enjoyed being part of this research, was inspired by the reading that I could do in their extensive archives, and learned so much from the education team with whom I spent valuable time. With regard to the impact of the award, the privilege of being embedded in an international museum's education programme to learn about their archiving strategies, their current practices, and have ongoing peer-to-peer conversations with Wendy Woon in particular was invaluable. I was a guest lecturer on a University of New York course on museum education led by her, and I also had opportunities to share my ongoing research while there with the education staff, with the Education Board of Trustees, which included the famous Howard Gardner of Multiple Intelligences, and the People's Artist Studios and the education team. When I returned from New York, fired up with ideas around exchanges between staff in our two institutions. The experience of being a Fulbright and having face-to-face access to so many of my peers while in New York has been a lifeline on my return. We connect through Zoom to share experience and strategies for coping with the changing landscape of museum education during this pandemic. The Fulbright Scholarship also facilitated me to have a lot of dream time in New York, to explore what that great city has to offer, and gave me time to pursue my interest in other forms of culture outside of the MoMA. I lived in two very contrasting neighbourhoods, spending the first half of my time in West Harlem on 150th and Bathurst, and the second half in the Upper East Side, beside the Guggenheim Museum. Walking in New York was inspirational in revealing ways of mapping the city, as informed by some reading that I was doing with Jeremiah Moss, Patti Smith and Olivia Lang. Tracing the routes that these writers explored fed into my research on the current strategies that the MoMA was employing through their curatorial vision for the rehanging of their collection and the invitations to participate in the People's Studios. I had unlimited access to their galleries and to all of the network of museums and galleries across the 5 boroughs of New York, getting free access due to my Fulbright lanyard. I got to attend the Creative Time conference in November to hear about their groundbreaking work within the field of socially engaged arts practice. I visited the Dia Beacon, the repurposed biscuit factory in upstate New York. I attended Alice Marr and Aideen Barry's film at the iconic Filmmakers Club. I met other international Fulbright scholars through social events, especially facilitated by the One to World organization. And I was supported throughout by Juliet Carver from the International Exchange Group. And she was very helpful ensuring that I was compliant with all of the bureaucratic requests from them and other government bodies. Finally, to say, the opportunity given through the Fulbright Scholarship to live abroad in a new city, to navigate the day-to-day needs alongside of developing new relationships and deepening older ones has been very empowering. Working closely with a peer from another institution doing a similar job has been invaluable and insightful, and will continue in new projects into the future and continue to inform our respective institutions in international exchange. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. It's so interesting to hear about your work and also all the amazing places you got to visit while you were there. So I'm sure that would appeal to a lot of people on the call today. Thank you, Helen. Okay, so next we're going to hear from David Stone. David, hi, welcome.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me fine.
Yep, I think so.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're very welcome to my little dingy home office, and I hope everybody is well. As Emma said, my name is David Stone, and I'm an Irish Research Council PhD student in the School of Archaeology in UCD, where I'm currently studying archaeobotany and medieval agriculture in late antique and medieval period Azerbaijan in the South Caucasus. And I also work as an archaeologist here in Dublin in the commercial sector, where I specialise in environmental archaeology, focusing on plant remains, and have a general interest in agriculture in the past. But as an archaeologist, I'm also interested in museums, museum collections, and basically how material culture is preserved. And it's an important subject that I'm interested in. So in 2018, during my second year of my PhD, I was first told about the Fulbright Irish Student Awards by my supervisor, Mary McClatchy, but also I was lucky enough to have the UCD Fulbright ambassador at the time, Dr. Amanda Kelly, in our department. So I applied for, and I was lucky enough to be awarded one of the first Fulbright Creative Ireland Museum Fellowships at the Smithsonian Institute at Washington, DC. I'm sure most people listening here, have heard about the Smithsonian, but if not, it's one of the largest education and research complexes in the world. And it's a leader in the field of protecting and preserving national heritage and material culture. It's an enormous institution. There's about 17 different museums, I think, in BC, 150 million artifacts, a cubic kilometre of display and storage. So a perfect place for anyone, for me in particular, for anyone who's interested in material culture and how it's created as well. So I selected the National Museum of Natural Heritage, Natural History, excuse me, based in the anthropology department there. So this museum houses an outstanding collection of zoo archaeological and archaeobotanical materials from around the world. And these include some of the earliest excavations from Neolithic Europe dating to the 1800s. So basically, they have a long history of hundreds of years of curating plant material, which is what I was interested in, and disseminating knowledge gained from it. So again, the perfect place for me to go there. The aim of my little project was linked to both my professional work here in Ireland, but also my PhD project. And it was just designed to establish some guidelines of best practice for the creation of material that I collect during excavations, and to establish a code of best practice for displaying, storing, preserving, and to learn how to communicate it digitally, addressing some issues we have here in Ireland and in Azerbaijan with artifacts. So basically, how do we preserve and store plant material long-term from excavations, and how I can better disseminate the knowledge we gain from them to a general audience. So I really had a tremendous time with this little project at the Smithsonian. I basically got to spend 3.5 months living on Capitol Hill in DC, and every day I was given access to some of the world's most iconic archaeological collections, and I could walk down a corridor and chat to the world's leading archaeologists, curators, and specialists in the Smithsonian, people who literally wrote the book on aspects of my discipline. And I got to just wander around museums, which I do in my spare time, for nearly 4 months. In terms of impact, the Fulbright has had a number of impacts professionally and personally, and some I didn't even consider before I had applied. Like professionally, the obvious ones is that I've made amazing connections with archaeologists in the Smithsonian, and then through their network, people from all around the world. So I've become, involved in some projects in places in the world I would have never have hoped to even got in contact with those people. So it's helped me establish an amazing professional network already. And also I've noticed that when I go to conferences abroad now, being a Fulbrighter and having the little logo on your poster, I get approached now by other Fulbrighters from around the world, other international students, and again, because of that, I'm getting involved in projects I would have never hoped to have seen other than that. I also notice people email me back a lot more now to find out about something. I've also then personally, since I've returned from America, I've stayed involved, or I tried to stay involved with the Fulbright and the Fulbright alumni community, which has been really fun. The Fulbright community here is amazing and extremely friendly, and really are an exceptional group of people. And the guys in the Fulbright Commission, Dara, Emma, Sonia, Paula, and Sarah, have all been very supportive, both during the process and since then. And like I mentioned, there's also a very active association, the IFAA, which hosts loads of functions throughout the year, except the latter half of this year. But they have some really amazing events where you can meet all the other Fulbrighters from out the year and people in different disciplines. And this involvement has led, for me anyway, some bizarre collaborations as well with departments in Ireland where I would have never have considered any common ground. So I would have never imagined how the UCD School of Archaeology and the KBS Business School in Limerick would have common research goals, but it turns out we do. And I've been involved with Dr. Jean McCarthy there from UL. Things I would have never have thought would have been possible. So the benefits go way beyond the initial project is basically what I'm trying to say. So finally, with regards to the application, I was asked to give some tips about the process. I jotted down a few things that I thought would be good to say, but I realized I actually didn't follow any of them myself. So, you know, I'm not going to tell anyone how to fill out the project. I'm sure everyone is more than capable. It's a fairly substantial process, but there's loads of time, you know, and I would say, if you are thinking about it, just go ahead and apply. You know, just do it. I initially didn't think my project or my discipline kind really fitted in. I almost didn't apply. And it was pretty much a last minute application, but I'm very glad I did. So if you're unsure whether, you know, you're going to fit in or not, just apply. And one thing I would say then is also think about not only the institution you're going to, but think about what you're going to bring the institution. I kind of focused myself on the Smithsonian, how great that was, but I didn't think as much about what I was going to bring there. You know, so you have to remember you guys are leaders in your subjects, in your fields too, and think about what you can actually bring that host institution. For me, I actually happened upon some Irish archaeological material in the Smithsonian when I was poking around there, which hadn't been analysed in over 100 years. So I was able to actually help them and give them some of my expertise, and actually another little project that has come from that as well. Maybe one last bit of advice would be to early on maybe just contact an institution and try and find someone there who would be a good fit for your project and a good host. Because I was lucky enough that I found someone early who's very engaged in what I wanted to do, and he helped me just not only with the work but also with, you know, getting settled in a new city, you know, learning how things run, things like that, you know, which is very important too. So yeah, and like we said earlier, if anyone is thinking of applying to the Smithsonian in particular, and anything in Washington, I'd be happy for you guys to share my email, and I'd be happy to help anything Smithsonian and Washington related, if that helps. So good luck with your applications. I hope that helped a bit.
Thanks so much, David. Yeah, really handy tips, lots of interesting experiences as well. So I think as well, talking about the lasting impacts and the community that you're a part of afterwards as well is so important. So thanks for touching on that.
No problem.
So next I'd like to welcome Nell Regan to speak a little bit about her experience.
Hey guys, listen, I'm going to see if I can share this thing now. Give me a second. No, and I just echo what David was saying there. If you're thinking about it, just go for it. Because I also think that sometimes the experience of, sorry, I'm not able to get this up. The experience of actually doing the application can clarify things for you, even if you don't necessarily get it. So I think it's really worth doing. I can't remember if I'm sharing my screen, what do I need to do as the presentation?
Just down the bottom there, Nell, the share screen button in the middle, but I can share them for you here if you have any issues.
Actually, yeah, if you don't mind. Sorry, no, it's more it's not slideshow, it's, oh, hang on. There, I got it, right. Yeah.
You want me to do?
Sorry, can't get out of it now.
For you?
Sorry, I've gone into it and I can't get out of it.
That's okay.
I mean, if you didn't mind, actually, would that be a problem?
Sure, okay, I'll share my screen now.
Thank you. But well, oh, thanks, Emma, that's brilliant. So yeah, my name is Nell Regan, and I'm a poet and non-fiction writer. And my Fulbright was actually 2011-2012, and I was in the International Writers Program in Iowa and in Berkeley then for a brief period, but I'm going to talk more about Iowa. So just to give you a background about myself, I published 4 books, with the 5th is at the publisher at the moment. And my poetry and articles would appear kind of regularly in the Irish Times and Poetry Ireland Review. And I've read at all the major literary festivals in Ireland and done reading tours in the US, the UK, and New Zealand. Because I'm freelance, my income comes from a variety of sources. I give readings, I lecture on Irish poetry with IES Chicago, a study abroad program for US students, which did come directly nearly out of my Fulbright experience. But I also go into schools with Poetry Ireland and Children's Books Ireland, and I curate literary festivals and events. Now, as you can imagine, COVID has shaken up most of my jobs, my work, but luckily I also do a bit of work in a primary school, so I'm able to kind of supplement it with that. So I applied for a Fulbright in the winter of 2010, which was the winter of the IMF, the great snow, and I'd actually just given up a permanent pensionable job, which seemed like a mad thing to do, but was the best thing I'd ever done. And funny, it was interesting listening to Alice Meyer there saying, I think she was saying Fulbright was part of her accepting herself as an artist. And I think for me, it was very much, doing the application was a declaration of intent to myself, I think, as much as anything, and ambition about where I wanted my life to go professionally and personally, which was to feed and write more basically, but also to jumpstart my work, move into work like lecturing and curating, as well as finding a community of writers abroad. So I'll just go on to the second slide if that's okay. Thank you. Oh yeah, they're just my publications. But I applied for a Scholars Award to go to the University of Iowa, and my second choice was Berkeley. Now this caused great hilarity among anyone who wasn't aware of how the Iowa Writers Workshop is actually, they're three of the most mythical words for writers, because it's one of the oldest and most famous creative writing programs in the US. But the University of Iowa, and sorry, do you mind going on to the next one there? Thank you. The University of Iowa also hosts the International Writing Program, which is where I wanted to go, which is a residency of 3 months in the company of 30 or so writers from all over the world. Now I knew that writers, Irish writers like Sebastian Barry and poets like Tom McCarthy and Ivan Boland had gone. And it was, there's an extraordinary kind of history of people going to IWP. And at Iowa, we did our own work, but we also lectured and gave readings for each other, for the university and for the public. And I suppose the highlights, I think similar to what Helen and David were talking about, were the people that I met and heard, and I think the perspective that I came back with. So I left with a number of American friends and contacts, but also because of the nature of IWP, I have writer friends all over the world. And funny conversations come back to me at the moment, like with a Lebanese friend over breakfast who said, you know, we never plan ahead in the Lebanon because you don't know what's going to happen next, which kind of resounds at the moment. I attended the wedding of 2 Israeli friends who were taking advantage of the fact that Iowa allowed gay marriage. And another kind of mutual friend of ours, a Palestinian friend now living in Dubai, she actually gave them her blessing in Arabic. So it was this extraordinary kind of mix of writers and cultures. And as well as that, what I was doing, my own work that I was working on, that I went over to do, was I was following the story of my great aunt, who was also my namesake, who had emigrated to America and had actually contracted TB while she was there and had died when she came back to Ireland. So I was I wasn't following the journey archivally. What I was doing was almost reimagining it through the places I was in. So these brought me to everywhere from the US Federal Gold Reserve, which was an amazing trip, and Muscatine, which is this tiny village in Iowa where they make pearl buttons. It was the pearl button capital of the world. So that kind of research was extraordinary as well. And I also traveled a lot through IWP, but to fund myself, because because I was freelance, I didn't have a kind of sabbatical salary. I actually did several reading tours in the Midwest, the West, and the East Coast, and these were kindly supported by Culture Ireland. And I think I really just came back with this sense of the scale of the US and its historical and cultural divides. I think it made me braver, actually, and I think that's one of the big things about Fulbright. It gives you a real sense of perspective, and it gives you a different take on home as well. I think that's something that's really important when you come back. Kind of directly coming back from it, I found an English publisher for my collection of poetry that had resulted from the time in the US. And it also gave me the confidence to go for a job I'd wanted a long time, which was director of the West Court Literary Festival, which I did for a while. My connections with Iowa continue, and in 2015, a book was published with contributions from myself and other Irish writers who had been to Iowa. And I was delighted because the title of it came from one of my own poems. It's called Town Stitched by River. And then I followed the return the following year to read at the Iowa Book Festival. So there's very much a sense of connection, ongoing connection. So I think as well, I'd echo what the other speakers were saying, is that for me, it's a decade on, and I think the positive impact of my time as a Fulbright scholar is still filtering through. So I think it's very much a kind of lifetime reserve that I'd pull on. As for tips for the application, I would say be full-hearted and excited about what you want to do, as much as being rigorous about the application, because I really think that excitement and that light in the eye is what it's about and what the panel will be looking for. And I think leave yourself plenty of time to do it and to think about it. For writers, I would say look at the kind of fruitful exchange between Irish and American writers, and how will this feed into your work, which is also the context for your proposal, and who do you want to work with and get to know and learn from is another key question. And actually the one thing we were chatting about there was, I was just saying that there seems to be more funding now, I think, for kind of people who are independent of institutions, which is brilliant. But the other thing is, if you're, as an artist or a writer, you might look into the Arts Council Travel and Training Award, because that was something they actually funded a part of my trip. And Culture Ireland, then you can piece together kind of different aspects of it. And I suppose for me, you know, putting those tours together really enabled me to get out even more. And it was one of the most positive parts of my experience. So I always want to say just thank you to Fulbright Ireland for kind of supporting me going. And actually, there's just some pictures with some of the fellow writers from IWP. And we also got the opportunity to meet Wally Soyinka, who's an extraordinary, he's a Nobel Prize winner, a Nigerian writer. And yeah, I think again, it's that kind of close up meeting of people. But just good luck with it and enjoy if you get it. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Nell.
Thanks, Emma.
Great to hear about your experience. And also, you know, that it's open, the Fulbright awards are open to writers as well, and of course to freelance artists and creators. You know, you don't have to be associated with the home institution, Ireland. Many of our applicants and awardees are, but it's not a prerequisite. So, you know, it's open to more broadly as well. So thanks for that, Nell. I'll just get rid of these slides now. So now we have next, Orla Murphy is going to share a little bit about her experience at Boston College, wasn't it, Orla?
Yeah, it was. Hi, everybody. Well, I want to first of all say always thank you to Fulbright. And yet again, it's been great for me to listen to everybody else's experience again this morning, and to hear echoed, if you like, a lot of the same thoughts, feelings and experiences that I had myself whilst in Boston College during the inaugural Fulbright Tech Impact Awards. So my background is in English, believe it or not, but also way back in 2002, I was part of a Foundations of Irish Culture project out of University College Galway, as it was at the time. And we went around the place scanning 3D models of cultural heritage way back in the day. But I was specifically interested in epigraphy and in reading, you know, lost, broken, damaged, you know, dispersed inscriptions on stone, usually pre-12th century. So what was I doing in an English department? And funnily enough, there is an article by an American scholar called Matt Kirschenbaum saying, what is digital humanities and what's it doing in an English department, you know? So one of the things that this award, the Fulbright Tech Impact Award, allowed me to do was to begin to acknowledge how all of these things coalesce in me, in my work and what I do. Way back in the day, there wasn't, we'll say, a department of digital humanities, and there certainly wasn't a school of English and digital humanities. All of that has come, I think, from the confidence that I gained through being in Boston College at that time. So the project, or the idea way back in the day, which was 2014, 2015, was to go and work in the context of a particular exhibition called Making It Irish, which was going to be at the Macmullen at Boston College, but also to be embedded in a particular seminar class at the invitation of Professor Joseph Nugent at Boston College. And it was a really great experience there to see the integration of technology and the humanities, kind of working together, and how they coalesced beautifully. But also then the idea of community service, education, and a very public and outward looking expression of kind of a disciplinary activity. So Helen, I saw you there with your free air right earlier in your, in terms of your critical pedagogy and how we do what we do. And that was very much the experience for me in working with Joe and his approach and working with the students there, giving plenty of talks, not just to students and mentoring some masters and PhD students, but doing kind of after hours pizza and beer activities, introducing kind of who I am and what we do and how everything kind of worked together, but also then benefiting hugely from the cultural context in Boston at the time. So believe it or not, it was relatively difficult for me, coming from my background, without a background in kind of museums, to kind of gain access to a museum to test out some of my ideas about how, for instance, 3D digital or immersive technologies might be applicable, in terms of not just documenting cultural heritage, but in terms of the museum and the lived experience, and how we might, engage a little bit more with that. But I was really, I was welcomed, and I spoke with the people who co-curated that exhibition at the time, Vera Creelkamp and Diana Larson and Virginia Tehan, who's now of course head of the Heritage Council here. So again, all of that exposure, that networking, those conversations are so important. I wasn't just located in Boston College. There was people coming in from the Museum of Fine Art, being able to see how they use digital technology to engage publics in their exhibitions as well. I got a lot of ideas and kind of, if you like, that dream space, to think about the possible. And at that time in Ireland, there wasn't a lot really about the possible. Things were, things still hadn't turned about, if you like, and specifically in the humanities. So to be able to see, somebody decide, oh yeah, I need to get this technology for my students, and literally go to the shop and get it. That actually transformed my thinking, because I think I'd been perhaps, set in a deficit model, post 2008. So we've continued, we've met up a few times since Joe and ourselves. What has it enabled me to do? Well, when I was there, I went and I spoke at Penn State. I was invited to speak to a whole load of different pedagogical, not just, if you like, other kind of, people involved in digital humanities, for instance, but, speaking with the librarians, speaking with, museums and collection specialists, lots of different milieus, if you like, which was excellent. But I always think of it in terms of, not just my project, because that was, if you like, a cornerstone or a keystone or a start, but really it's a platform for the possible, for thinking about yourself and what it is that you do and you, and in a, how to put it, in a much more, well, for me anyway, a holistic way. Now, I also wanted to kind of speak a little bit about then the platform that, and you've spoken about it, everyone else has as well, what that did for me here. It gave me confidence then in an Irish context to say, yeah, this is a thing, So when I came back again, a little bit like you, David, thinking about what are we doing and how are we doing it here and how can we make it a little bit better. So I've gone on to become co-chair with Katie Sweeney from the Department of Education and Skills of the Arts and Culture and Education Research Repository, and that resides at the Digital Repository of Ireland. So I'm on the board of the Digital Repository of Ireland now, and really very engaged about how we curate the digital long term, that there's so much, if you like, that's potentially being lost, you know, in terms of ephemera. So the digital is material people, how are we doing that? So, and also then having, I suppose, again, the confidence and the platform to say, actually, yeah, what we're doing in terms of the arts, culture, creativity is important, and that that what we're doing and our engagement and that kind of nexus, you know, in terms of technology, is not just necessary, it's urgent. You know, so if you look at what's happening now, even with, I don't know, the lack of humanity perhaps with the application of an algorithm to results for a leaving certificate or A levels, or you need people who think creatively and who think outside the box, you know, to be engaged with technology all the time. So what's happened subsequently then is, you know, I've encouraged some of my own students to apply, and Patrick Egan, who's an ethnomusicologist, is just back from the Library of Congress last year, and he was also a recipient of a Kluge Fellowship while he was there. And, you know, I'll be encouraging my students ad infinitum to do this. My family came over to visit me, and we visited every museum. Obviously, I was thinking with the Peabody, MIT, the Isabella Stewart Gardner, you know, all of those. We walked and walked and walked through Boston. I set myself up in Back Bay, around the corner from the Trader Joe's. So, you know, I was in good shape for welcoming visitors. And yeah, so I had plenty of friends come over as well. And yeah, it was a great opportunity, and one that I will be forever professionally grateful for. It gave me the confidence to become part of a major European network called Colour in Space and Cultural Heritage. You know, and again, very interdisciplinary activity there with, you know, physicists, engineers, art historians, curators, you know, colour scientists, everybody in the group. So again, moving out of your own little kind of niche in a particular area in Ireland, and then saying, no, actually there is way more possible. So my one-liner for the Fulbright is a platform for the possible, you know, and I would encourage anybody who is thinking about applying to apply like everybody else. But specifically, I would, you know, in terms of my tips for the application, my only tip is to be yourself, you know, because, you know, you've heard all of us today, very different, very unique experiences, and to be yourself, because that's what, if you like, will, I suppose, give you the, you know, render you successful, you know, in the application in the end. So yeah, I hope that wasn't too much of a ramble. I'm on my holidays. I think I've got, I'm in West Kerry, so I have that that going on. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us from your holidays as well. But yes, exactly. I think the confidence building, that's something we hear from alumni so much, that, you know, Fulbright really kind of gives them that backing as well. And then from meeting all the network of people in the US and staying in touch, it really kind of lasts their whole career. So I just would welcome questions now from all our participants. If you type in the chat box, we can see your questions and I'll call them out. We just have a question here saying, does a Fulbright, I think, accommodate people bringing their families? And yes, as Orla said, she brought her family. We wouldn't give extra funding for you to bring your family, but we will organize their visas and things like that. So it's definitely possible, and many Fulbrighters have done that in the past, whether they're going for, you know, just on a shorter Tech Impact Award, or if they're going for the full academic year. Maybe Orla, if you wouldn't mind, do you want to expand a little bit on you know, how you found it in terms of, I think your award was a shorter term award, so you wouldn't have had to organize school and things like that for the kids.
Yeah. No, so mine was a very short award, and I did that because, you know, yeah, I still am a mother of 3, you know, so it would have been very difficult for me to hightail it off for the year, even though I know colleagues who have done that, you know, and been supported in Fulbright, you know, to do that in terms of organising schools and what have you. But yeah, it was a short award, but my kids still speak about it. I actually scheduled it around their holiday time as well, so that they weren't missing too much of school. And yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'll blatantly admit that they did miss a little bit of school, but not too much, but they still speak of the incredible experience that they have as well, that they had at the time. So I have a young person who can tell you what the ice cream float tastes like in the Cheesecake Factory. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Another question coming in: did you get feedback on your application? So I think just in terms of successful applications, I believe your feedback would be you're shortlisted for the interview, I guess. I know for unsuccessful applications we do give feedback, but did any of you as successful awardees seek feedback or anything like that? No. So yeah, the success was enough. Another question coming in: is it possible to apply to the Smithsonian under the Creative Scholar Award, or is it only for students? So yes, you absolutely can apply to the Smithsonian. The Student Award, which David went on, you can only pick one of those three institutions: Smithsonian, Exploratorium, or Harry Ransom Centre, whereas the Professional Award, that's just new this year, is open to anywhere. So you can choose anywhere you want to go in the States, and that includes, Smithsonian or Exploratorium, wherever you want to go, or more broad. It can be more broad. So David, in terms of reaching out to the Smithsonian, I suppose like you still had to reach out to a department head or something like that, did you?
Yeah, so there's 17 different museums within the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. So although it says, it's Fulbright Creative Ireland Smithsonian, there's a huge range of different types of museums for different types of people, I guess. There's everything from modern art to contemporary history to natural history. So it's quite an open one, even though it sounds like it's not. Yeah, so I looked up which department that would fit me best. Went through everybody's bios to see which researcher would be best for me, and then just contacted them. And I was lucky enough that they were very supportive then. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. Super. And I'd recommend starting that as soon as possible. It's never too early to start reaching out to potential host institutions. Even for the timing of your award, you can go apply this year to go anytime from August 2021 to August 2022. But you want to make sure that that's, your timing is good for the host institution, because we discourage usually going during the summer because a lot of programs will be closed in educational institutions. But in terms of just when it suits your host contact to go over, to make sure that they're there in the institution, they won't be on holiday or on sabbatical. That's really important as well. So a couple more questions coming through. What was the last one here? Is it open to actors? Yeah, so it's open to all disciplines. So I suppose with actors, visual artists and musicians, it's a question of, you're going to do some kind of research, but you can do research by practice. So it's thinking about that and framing your proposal and your project statement, and your rationale for going to the US to do it. And I suppose, well, I should mention that you'll see it on our website and all the guidelines. There is a 2-year home rule. So this is very much, you go to the US as an exchange program, you go for a maximum a year, and then you come home to Ireland and share the knowledge that you've gained. And there is, a condition in your visa that you won't be able to get a residency or working permit in the US until you fulfill that 2-year home rule in Ireland. So it's not a pathway to staying in the States and developing a career, but it is a pathway to, building up a network of people. And then in the future, if you decide to go back after the 2 years, that's up to you. So there's one more question here. Do student awards require prior agreement with the host institution, or can I apply to multiple universities with the Fulbright Award? Yes, so you can apply to multiple universities. So if you wanted to do a master's, for instance, you can apply, and we would probably recommend that you apply to more than one. So you'll have your top choice, and then you might have 1 or 2 other ones, and you would apply to the university program separate to your Fulbright applications. There might be a lot of crossover, you know, in terms of essays and things like that. But similarly then, if you want to go on a research-based award, you can reach out to a number of universities and see which is the best fit for you. And then you put them in your application, you put what your first choice is, but then when you're offered the Fulbright Award, say in April, you can confirm then which one you want to go for. Okay. Couple more questions here. Let me see. A question about music production courses. Yes, we have had actually a number of people going to do courses or going to do research in music. They might be musicians carrying out kind of, again, research by practice, or you know, research in archives or something like that. So it's very broad. It's just thinking about how, what your rationale for going to the US is, and then what you're going to bring back to Ireland after. Yeah, and a lot of people, yeah, just a question on performances there. Like a lot of people would go to do specific area of research, but then they might go and give a lecture or a performance in a different organization as well, close by, or they might travel while they're over there. So all of that is open. I will be sending out a recording of the webinar. Well, actually what I'll do is I'll send it to all of the registered here, but it'll also be on our YouTube channel, okay? So it'll be available for everyone to watch. Another question, is the program, if the program is for 2 years, do I need to return after the first year, or can I continue with the 2-year home rule? Yeah, if your course is master's 2 years, or PhD, you know, going 5, 7 years, whatever it is, you obviously can stay on till you finish the course, and then the 2-year home rule kicks in. And Fulbright would just fund, you know, go towards funding your first year, not following years. How many student fellowships are available? There are 3 of those Creative Ireland fellowships available. And does it cover full cost of accommodation as well? It doesn't. I mean, David, again, maybe you could speak a little bit about it's based on a monthly maintenance rate, your award that you're given, but it would not necessarily cover everything, depending on, I suppose, the lifestyle you choose to lead there as well. Yeah,
well, the amount I was given covered everything, just say flights and accommodation for me. Now, Washington was quite expensive, and also I left accommodation probably a bit too last minute, and you know, did things like Airbnb and moves around. But if you planned ahead with what I was given, it covers everything for 3.5 months. Yeah. Plan ahead a bit better, maybe. Yeah.
Again?
Plan ahead a bit better than I did.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The basics.
Yeah, and as well, like as David said, if you know some, like we've had 2,500 Irish US exchanges to date. So have a good look at our website, because there's probably someone, you know, either a US awardee living in the place you want to go to, or there's an Irish awardee who's been there. So seek out their help and their advice, you know, on planning, accommodation, all that kind of stuff as well, okay? Another couple of questions coming through here. Hopefully I'll get through all the questions. If I miss a couple, don't worry, you can email us after at any time and I'll go through them. Are fees covered for all universities for student awards, regardless of public or private? Again, the Fulbright award will be assessed on a monthly maintenance rate. It is not going to cover your full fees for a master's, because they could be anything up to, you know, $50,000. So it's not going to cover that and your accommodation as well. So that's something to bear in mind when you are applying to institutions, and reach out to them to see if they have maybe a tuition waiver or partial tuition waivers for Fulbrighters, and whether they'd be able to whether they have any other financial aid available. So check all that out in the early stages. Okay, any other questions for the speakers specifically? If the more specific ones, you know, for the application, we can answer by email. We just are nearly out of time now, so I might just take one more question. Can you say what you feel now is the biggest benefit for you, Helen? So maybe we might just go through very briefly, everyone, and the biggest benefit, you think, and then we'll finish up on any other questions we can cover later on. Okay.
Yeah. I think what's really good about Fulbright is it doesn't discriminate against age or stage of development. And that was what I learned from hosting the 2 Fulbrighters in Dublin, in IMMA. They were both towards the end of career curators. So I took a great inspiration from them. And I have to say, then being in the States really fired me and inspired me. You know, there was a lot that was familiar, but it was like falling in love with my craft again, falling in love with my profession again. And there is such generosity in the States across professionals. Everybody I met, irrespective of people I knew who was meeting for the first time or working with for a while, always, it probably was, as David had said, the Fulbright tag. It does open doors, but besides that, people gave me all the information I asked for and more. So it has, I really do feel that it has launched in me in terms of personal and professional energy for the next 10, 20, hopefully 30 years of working and being in this field. So that's my takeaway.
How about you, David?
Hi, sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear it.
Sorry, it was just about the kind of best impact or the best thing about the award to date.
Oh, well, the best thing I found is throughout my academic career so far, I've always wanted to work with the best people in the world. And, you know, I've been lucky enough, you know, during my master's and my PhD to have done that as well. But with Fulbright, it really has opened up doors for collaborations with people that I would have never gotten to work with, I don't think, otherwise. And it has made me very excited about future projects and my future career. So just apply, everybody. Yeah, excellent.
Excellent. Thanks, David. How about you now?
There. I think it was the richness of the experience, actually, because it was lovely having the opportunity to kind of, I'm away as well, like Orla, and I just spent yesterday morning kind of going through my photographs and thinking about it. And for me, it's kind of 9 years ago now. And I just thought I haven't even begun to kind of mine the amount of things I did and saw and heard. And it really actually made me want to go back again and kind of absorb what I learned, who I met, what I saw. So I think it's the richness of the experience, actually. And you do, somebody else was saying that about the kind of the generosity and the kind of openness that certainly I encountered. And it really, I don't know, it opens things up when you come home. And I think it's important as well on a small island to kind of to get out and to get away and then come back again. So yeah, I think it's what I have now, which amazes me as much as what I got then. It's what it brought back. Yeah.
And how about you, Orla?
Yeah, both of those things, I think, the generosity of spirit and then the re-energizing thing, right? You know, it held in balance, you know, all of the people that I met, and then the re-energizing piece. But then on top of that, I think for me, I was at a very specific point and moment in my career where, I would say, things were pivoting. It was at the end of the National Interinstitutional Digital Arts and Humanities program. What we're going to do next, and yeah, I felt, you know, this is okay. I can do this. This is a thing, you know, and you know, it's not just, you know, us few over here in a corner in Ireland. You know, sometimes you can feel, you know, very siloed, perhaps, you know, and you know, maybe even alone in that, right? No, actually, there's lots of other people doing really great, fabulous stuff in the world, you know, and to be able to bring that back, but also to bring, I hope as well that when I was there, I kind of seeded some ideas also, you know, about how we were kind of undertaking that critical digital pedagogy and that sense of maybe digital citizenship around that, you know. So it, very much a reciprocal, re-energizing, kind of generous experience. So that's it.
Thank you so much. There's a few requests just coming in to see whether people could possibly have the panelists' email address. So if you are happy with that, panelists, maybe you could pop your email address into the chat box there, just while I'm closing up. And thank you. We didn't get to all of the questions today, but please feel free to email info@fulbright.ie. It's just one L in Fulbright. That's important for going forward with your application as well. So you can send any further questions there. I'd like to sincerely thank all our panelists today. Thank you so much for taking the hour out of your lunch break. Helen, David, Nell and Orla. And I'd like to thank our attendees as well for joining us today. It's great. We had a full house today, so great to see so much interest. Just a reminder that we have a number of sessions coming up as part of the webinar series. You can check those out on our events page on our website. Particularly, I encourage you to attend the application process webinar on the 17th of September. That'll take you through all the basics, okay? So thank you again to our panelists, and thanks to all of you for joining us. Great to see you, and really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.